Be not thou therefore shamed of the testimony of our Lord, nor of me his prisoner, but be thou partaker of the afflictions of the gospel according to the power of God. That was 2 Timothy 1:8. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Thinking Well podcast. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Tom. So we are back again this week. We did a testimony episode with Brother Ryan Reeves not too long ago. We're going to try to kind of do some testimony episodes. I know that was kind of our first one, but as we talked about when we did that one, it's really powerful and important to hear other believers' testimonies and just what we can take away from it and how God gets the glory in so many different situations that we face in our life. This week, we have the privilege of having my older brother, Pastor Tim Plemmons, and I'll kind of let him introduce himself, and then Tim, as soon as you get done, we'll jump into it if that's okay.
That's fine. Hi guys.
How's it going?
Say hi.
What up?
So I'm Pastor Tim Plemmons of Marshall Baptist Church in Marshall, Wisconsin. I've been here since April of 2019 as co-pastor, and then in May of 2020, I was installed as the senior pastor. And we've been going strong since then, looking forward to what the Lord has next for us in the coming year.
So, Tim, I think so. Yours is a story that I don't think many people will have the privilege of hearing, and it's after they hear it, I think a lot of people may associate with it or gain some knowledge from it. So why don't we start kind of your initial profession of faith, and then kind of work up, I guess, to where you're at now, if you want to start there.
Sure. So grew up in a Christian home my whole life. Parents were in the ministry, and we were living in Mazan, Illinois at the time. And at the age of 8 years old, I made a profession of faith. We always grew up having, if you would, family devotions. And I remember Dad talking about salvation and hell and things of that nature. And I remember I did everything that he said to do except the part that it needed to be, heartfelt. And it sure wasn't a part of that. It was just basically head and not heart. And so from there on, we went to Germany, and I struggled. The biggest part that I struggled with after that was fear, worry. Never could get really any kind of control over it. I remember, Tom maybe remember this, that there were times when nighttime would come and we lived so close to some kind of base. I just can't remember what it was, but the planes would always fly over. And I always creep into where he was sleeping, because we shared a room, and I'd sleep at one end of the bed and he'd sleep at the other end of the bed, simply to be near someone.
I do remember that. I didn't realize that was why you did that. Huh.
Yep, I was totally fearful of bombs dropping, the world ending, whatever it may have been. That was my fear. Then we continued to do things, stay active, handing out what we would consider. We put tracts in mailboxes in Germany, which you were allowed to do. And remember doing that, being very active in things of that nature. I even remember being baptized at the age of 10 in a swimming pool there in Germany. Why I waited 2 years, I don't know. I think it's because I'm just still totally fearful of water as a whole. I think that was the biggest thing about all that. Went through my teen years. I was a very, Tom would probably even attest to this, very goody-goody. Not saying that I was ultimately awesomely good, but I felt like I was better than my brothers because I did not get in as much trouble as they did.
That's why whenever we were going to get in trouble, we made sure Tim went with us. That way he couldn't tattletale on us.
Gotcha. Good strategy.
Well, well, it wasn't only that. I basically acted as their conscience as well. Always worrying, we need to be home on time, guys, fearful, not straying too far away from home, simply because I wanted to be near home. Always things like that. I think the biggest issue was fear and worry for me, and anxiety. I would worry so much sometimes that I would make myself sick. And that was during my teenage years. And then I remember at the age of 13, weird as it may seem, I had a dream one night. I was with my dad on a missions conference trip, and we were in Beeville, Texas. And Pastor Tim Stowe was the pastor of the church. And he had a missions conference, and I remember my dad preached a message down there. And we were staying at someone's house. I can't even tell you who it was, but I remember staying in this person's house, and Dad was sleeping on the floor, and he had given me the bed that night. And I remember having this weird dream of being out on a lake that was foggy, and I was in a boat, fishing boat, and Grandpa Plemmons was in the boat with me, and I had my Snoopy fishing pole, and we were talking about whatever, but he simply mentioned, you need to go to Germany to help your dad out, like as a missionary. And I said, why? And then he wasn't there anymore. He was gone. So I kind of ran with that as a calling, which it wasn't, but I'm just saying that's what I felt it was, a calling to go into the ministry. Excuse me. And then we, from there, I decided to, at the age of 17, I had to come home to the States, and went to Oxford Baptist Institute in Oxford, Mississippi.
Let me jump in here real quick. Just for our listeners and for Kyle's sake, I will say that I do remember you being like fearful all the time, and especially during would it have been Desert Storm in 1990, early 1990s, right? I remember you like being petrified anytime we were around anyone of a certain nationality. Like you would always be like, "Oh, you can't stop speaking English; only speak German."
You're right.
And I guess based on your testimony now, like that makes so much more sense to me. Because then I kind of thought it was like, Tim, you like stop freaking out all the time, man. Like, but in light of what you're talking about now, like you were fearful for your life because you didn't, and you can stop me if I'm wrong, but based on what you've said so far, it's just you didn't know really what your eternal destiny was.
That was the biggest thing, and plus I wasn't trusting God at all. Not one bit.
So you didn't have the Holy Spirit dwelling within you to kind of help you through that fear and those times.
Right. Or that peace, right? The assurance.
Exactly. Exactly. Now that makes so much of like being around you in our childhood. I don't know if I'm just a horrible brother that I'm like hearing all this now or what, but so much of being around you in our childhood now makes I can see through a different lens. That's kind of amazing. I had no idea, man.
I can say this. I was a pretty good actor.
So
I put on a pretty good face. I remember when Dad and them were getting ready to leave Arkansas to go back north, and I remember Dad pulling me out on that gravel driveway out there in I can't remember the Belleville, whatever the name of the town is, there in Arkansas, out there, Bellevue Baptist Church.
Okay, yeah.
And Ethel, Arkansas, Ethel. And he pulled me out there on that gravel driveway, and he says, "Tim, are you really sure that you want to go to college, if you want to go to seminary school?" And I hesitated. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I really don't want to do this. I want to go back with you guys. In my head, that's what my head was saying. but I knew
back to Germany?
Supposed to stay. Yeah, go back to Germany.
Okay.
Or not go to school at all.
Oh, so this is so we had brought you back to the States, and this was you getting ready to leave because, you were 18 and you couldn't,
Yes.
Based on the way that mission work works right now, that's kind of the time that missionary kids come back.
Right.
So you were standing outside of that church. And okay, that makes sense now. I just because I think you and I know what we're talking about, but this is the time in his life where we were going back to Germany as a family. He was going to stay here because he was 18. Okay,
it sounds like the decision. Sounds like the decision was: do I go to seminary and go back as a support, as my own missionary, but to support the family?
Yeah.
So it sounds like Tim. It sounds like you were struggling with that when you were asked, "Hey, do you actually want to take this really big step forward to, enroll in seminary and go down this road," where it seems like from what I can tell, kind of outside looking in, that was kind of a threshold.
It was a huge decision. A part of me, I think I had preached a couple of times at that point, but even as I look back now, after being saved for as long as I've been saved, and I look back on those earlier times, I'm like, what was I doing? But I enjoyed seminary school. When I went to seminary school, I saw some hypocrisy going on in the school. Tom and I both know that we grew up not going to movies, going to the theater or anything like that. And so, of course, my goody self kind of wanted to be a little bit of a rebel at that time. And somebody asked me if I wanted to go to the movie theater with them. And it was one of my own college, buddies who was also studying for the ministry. Let's go to a movie. And so we went to a movie. And it was like, wow, this is really cool. What's so bad about this? And but as I progressed I remember the worst class, the class I hated the most, if I can say it this way, was speech class. I hated sermonizing. I hated trying to stand in front of people, especially in a class setting like we were doing, because you always had to do a 3-point outline of a song and a poem kind of thing. And you always had to bring something forth. I hated. I remember the first time that when you guys left, in my very first class, one of my second or third classes that I had was evangelism class. I remember just weeping because I was supposed to give my personal testimony of salvation and I just couldn't do it.
Wow.
So I made it through that. I did excellent in all my classes except for speech class. And I remember going to Missionary Baptist Seminary, which is the headquarter college, if you would, or seminary school of the American Baptist Association in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I went there because the pastor that I was living with at the time had actually requested that I go to his alma mater. And I said, sure. They took care of all my bills because I went to that school.
Okay.
And I was only there for half a semester because then Tom came home. Tom came back to the States. And so I moved north in January of 1997. And I know that Mazan Baptist Church there had a small little institute. It was Tom, myself, Jason, and I think Kelly Young at the time.
So
we're all
real quick. Do you think me coming back to the States, and you kind of dropping out after that semester, do you think that was like an escape for you? Was it like, oh, here's my opportunity? Did you see? Do you think retrospectively you saw it as that, or were you just did you just want to be up? Did you just want to be up north with me because I was home?
Both.
Okay.
I saw family was coming home and that I could be with family, but also dropping out when I moved up there after not very long being up there, that I saw it as a way out.
Okay.
And I remember for the longest time working so many different hours at my jobs, at the job that I had, that I would miss Sunday evening service, or I would miss a Wednesday evening service because of work, whatever it was. And it really didn't faze me. It really didn't bother me that much. And then, I don't know, later on, I don't even know, I think at the age of 21, it kind of just went downhill. I went off into alcoholism. I wasn't, people say, well, you were just a social. No, I was, if I retrospectively look back at all of it, I was an alcoholic. One of those things when one of my friends, I moved, like Tom knows, I escaped again. I ran from every bit of the responsibility that I had. And I moved to Oregon for 8 months just to run away from all of it. And I got into a church out there, and it kind of, I don't know how to put it. It kind of turned me around, but, you know, it was one of those morale things, I guess, when I look back on it. Morally, I quit smoking and I quit drinking. I had one of my friends that I was friends with out in Oregon. He told me, he says, Tim, I love you. You're my buddy. You're my brother, but you drink more than I do. And so when he said that to me, I kind of like put a kibosh on it and stepped away from it. Moved back to Illinois and worked in the church for a long time. Got married in 2009.
Oh, hang on. Let's not just breeze over that section.
Over what section?
Over you getting married.
Oh.
Like, let's not just breeze over that. Real quick, but before you get to the you get married part, you've said a lot, playing the part, able to be a good actor. Do you think that being a pastor's kid, a missionary's kid, do you think that played into your ability to do that? Or do you think it was just something that kind of came out of necessity for you to be able to play that role?
No, it was because I was a pastor's kid, a missionary's kid.
Okay.
I knew all the right things to say. I knew all the things not to do. So it was easy to play that role because I'd been doing it for so long. I remember the pastor in Oregon saying, after I'd been there for maybe 4 or 5 months, I remember him telling me, he says, when you first came, I was watching you because I always tend to watch those that say they're a pastor's kid. And he said, I know you're struggling with something, but I just don't know what it is. But he says, I know that there's something wrong and you need to get it right. And I kind of just delved into serving in the church there with, like, I wrote their Easter play. I helped with their Christmas play. So I did those things and was involved in singing specials. I didn't teach really any Sunday school or anything like that, but I was involved as much as I could be involved to salve myself.
So you kind of covered up his perception of something being wrong in your life with over compensating service?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
I wonder how many of us. I wonder how many of us fall into that trap.
Well,
like I know there's
that.
something wrong in my life,
Yeah.
right? Let me see what even if it's not a salvific thing, right? Like even as born again Christians, I wonder how many of us are like, just so no one sees what I'm struggling with in my life, I wonder what I can get involved in the church. Let me see if I can compensate for that so that nobody thinks something's going on. I wonder how many of us as Christians fall into that trap, or that, like you said, Tim, that salve.
Oh,
Go ahead, Kyle.
no doubt. I mean, I can relate to that personally, right? Where, you know, you're so backslidden, but you have obligations at the church, but instead of just surrendering to Christ like you should, for whatever reason, call it, ignorance, just being young, whatever, you choose to prolong the lie, which just gets heavier and heavier, especially when you're trying to juggle both, trying to be on two sides of one fence. And it's, we'll get to it eventually. Our listeners will definitely hear it. I like to do an episode where, Tom and I individually do our testimonies, but you can't do it. It'll come crashing down. It becomes too heavy at one point.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, Tim. I just thought that was a really good, key point there. I think, like I said, regardless of what you're dealing with at a spiritual level, man, Christians, we do that a lot.
It reminds me of the verse in Romans chapter 2, verse 14 and 15, where it says, "For when the Gentiles, which have not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, these having not the law are a law unto themselves, which show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts the meanwhile accusing or else excusing one another."
Yeah.
And so my conscience was either I was doing things to excuse the other things that the Holy Spirit was actually working on me in, that I was trying to excuse it away, like, no, that can't be it because of what took place when I was 8 years old. There's no way possible that I'm lost because of this back here when I was 8.
Yeah.
So that's how I excused all those things. And then when that period of time when I got back in, I can't remember, I think it was June of 2004, I came back to Illinois, and then all that stuff transpired. Even after that there were some things in my life that I taught Sunday school, I preached on occasion.
Yeah, I remember you preaching.
Sometimes I felt like I was winging it. Sometimes I felt like I was I wasn't really doing the in-depth. It felt like it was all surface.
Oh yeah, our pastor calls those saucer sermons. They're only as deep as a saucer. There's no actual depth to them.
There's no depth.
Yeah.
And I even went back. I was going through stuff the other day, and I found some of those old sermons on paper, and I'm like, really? Wow, Tim.
Was it one of those things where they kind of ticked all the boxes of what it takes to be a good biblical sermon, but there was none of the personality or the personal conviction in it?
Most definitely. It had the 3 points, and it had a couple of quotes, and it looked really nice. And it had a real catchy title, But now, I look back now on the messages I'm preaching now, and I'm like, huge difference between those and these that I preach now.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to where we were at.
Yeah. So marriage. Let's not skim over that. And again, we don't need the entire story, but it was a very unique and even from my perspective, whether God was leading you or not, it was a God-led situation for sure.
Yeah. I met my wife through Facebook. We started conversing over Facebook, and then we started calling each other from about January 1 till about February. Let's just put it this way. When we started talking, we both said to one another, "Don't fall in love with me." Okay, that was
this is another pastor's kid, right?
Yes, she is a pastor's daughter, and I didn't like her dad at the time, but that's okay. I love the man now. He's like one of my mentors and dearest friends.
Just in case he's listening, right?
But yes, I doubt it, but I'm just going to keep his name out of it.
No, I gotcha.
So, I'll put it this way. I never expected to have a wife that is extremely perceptive, that is in tune with the Holy Spirit enough that she knew something wasn't right. Even after we first got married, she knew something wasn't right. She just couldn't put her finger on it.
So January to February, right? That's when y'all were talking.
January to February.
So then what happened?
It was all talking.
Okay.
It's all talking. And then Dad was like, why don't you just go visit her, see if you think this is going to work. Not, nothing gain, nothing, whatever. And I said, I remember telling him the night before I flew out, February 20th, before I flew out, that night before, I told him, said, Dad, if I fly out there, I'm coming back with her. And I remember flying out there on February 20th. She was waiting for me at the airport. I had the engagement ring with me. I basically put it on her finger in her car in the airport parking lot.
Nice.
Wow, you're such a romantic. I would have married you right there.
Well, I made up for it. I made up for it after we moved to Montana. We moved to Montana in 2000. We got married the next morning.
Don't skip too far ahead. Hang on. There you go. Yeah. Got married the next morning.
What's that?
You said you got married the next morning?
February 21st. So I flew in February 20th, seeing her for the first time, face to face. We wrote our marriage vows that night. Got up the next morning. All of her stuff was I stayed in her room upstairs in this house we were at, the Pastor Zeiler, his house, and went to the church, locked the doors. It was just her parents, the pastor and his wife, and the flower girl and us. We got married and unlocked the doors, had a very quick reception with the church members of that church out there, and drove back to Illinois.
Drove back. From where
yes.
was this?
South of Missoula, Montana.
Montana to Illinois. How long a trip was that?
3 days. And the first night we stayed in a hotel in Billings, Montana, and we were robbed.
Wow.
Somebody smashed out the window of our car while we were sleeping and stole the safe that had her Social Security card and some family heirlooms and her passport and stuff like that. So, of course, when I went out to the car and saw that and then came back in and told her, because she didn't know me that well, she thought I was messing with her. And I said, no, I'm being serious. We've been robbed.
Like, hey, this is our honeymoon morning. Like, are you messing with me right now?
Right. And so I think we since everything was closed, because in Montana they have blue law, so nothing opens until noon, and it's a Sunday. So we had to get a trash bag from one of those big black trash bags from the church, from the hotel that we were staying at, and we taped it as best we could. We drove from there, Billings, all the way to Rapid City, South Dakota, yelling the whole way because of the wind whip of us driving as fast as we were driving. And so basically we have said and told people we got all of our yelling out in the 3 days that it took us to get back to Illinois, because
that's funny.
I haven't yelled at her, or she hasn't yelled at me the whole time we've been married 14 years.
That sounds lame.
Well, that's super interesting, Tim. It's a lot of people, you see these very long engagements, and I got to tell you, I don't know if I completely understand. Right, I understand getting to know somebody. You want to court them biblically and understand what they're about and make sure it's the right person, because the goal is to do that one time, right? You want to make sure you get the right person. But the other side of it is, if you're saving money, I can kind of understand that other aspect of it. But the years and the years that go into planning and being engaged for that long, I can never say that I completely understood that, right? And it's just one of those things where I think, if you guys are both on the same page, and if God's in it, why can't it not be overnight? Why does it have to be years, right? You're right. If God's leading you that direction, or if God has put that person in your life, which sounds like that's your, the reason, Tim. That's the testimony there. She definitely was put there by God to be a testimony to you, to help you. Yeah, I mean, I can completely understand that, right? When it's right, when God is involved.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need years. You don't need months.
Yeah. Well, and God doesn't even have at that point. God didn't even have to be involved in his life directly that way, right? God was leading her.
Yeah, he was using her.
Yeah, and through that wound up blessing Tim's life in a way that he couldn't have imagined in God's grace, right? I mean, Tim, I thought you were insane, man. I thought you'd full on gone. I thought you'd full on gone off the deep end. Like I would have never pegged that for you to ever do that, because you were such a planner, and like everything for you had like this. Maybe it was because of all the fear that you dealt with, growing up and part of your adult life, that like everything you had a plan for everything, and everything had this set order to it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but like it blew me away when you did that. Like I literally had no idea that's what was going on then.
I'll put it this way. At the time that it happened, and at the time we got married, I did not know for sure how God was going to work it all out, because as a lost person, that was the last thing on my mind.
Oh yeah. I guess I never thought of it from that direction either. Like what that must have felt like.
But God knew, because ultimately, I look back on our life now, excuse me, and seeing how much of an influence she was and is still in my life, that God sure was gracious through her to me, because she ultimately challenged me on everything that was going on in my life personally. She goes, why do you have this? Why is this going on? Why did you say this? Why are you doing this? This does not add up here. As being a Christian and someone who is training for these things ought not to be. It was constant challenge, constant challenge. And I think, I know that God put her in my life to influence my life for the good, to bring me to that place of coming to the realization that that I was an unbeliever, that I needed to be saved. And I'm thankful.
You got married, you came back.
Lord because of that.
So you got married, you came back.
Yep.
What then?
So it wasn't long. Had our first child, and the following year in Kerrigan, and we went to Montana the following year in May for a conference. And I remember going there and kind of out of my element. It's Montana. And
you didn't have a cowboy hat with you?
I didn't have what?
You didn't have a cowboy hat with you?
Yeah. Not only that, but they it's just totally not used to the way they did things. Okay. And I remember that when the conference was almost over, I remember coming to my wife, and I told her, I said, we're coming back here. We're moving here. We're going to come back here. And it's simply one of those things that I don't know truly if it was the Lord's leading, but the Lord was about to put me through severe boot camp, trying to get me to the place where I knew that I was lost, or something wasn't totally right. And so I remember going back home to Illinois, and I remember laying in bed one night, and I was just struggling. I remember my wife was like, what's wrong? And I said, I'm struggling with something, and I can't put my finger on it. I said, I don't know 100% sure if I'm really saved. And she's like, you need to call somebody. So I called somebody, and I talked to that person. And that person took me back to when I was 8. This is what took place. Okay. Even though when I came back and said to that person, okay, I got it, I kind of just let it go. I had that person reassure me that I was saved, but I still had doubts. Even after all that.
Yeah.
And there was that nagging, underlying, I still had fear. I still had worry. I had anxiety still, really bad. But I remember when we got to Montana, things just didn't change. They kept being the same. And if anything, things kept getting more and more hard to do. I don't know how to explain it.
Like just harder to keep up the facade, or?
The facade, yes. Very difficult to keep up the facade. It was getting more difficult. It was getting harder. The questions were still there. And nobody was really answering them. And I wasn't finding the answers.
All right, we're going to take the opportunity and split the episode right here. Be sure and tune in next week, and we'll finish this interview with Pastor Tim Plemmons and take another plunge in thinking